why you keep imagining a better version of yourself. You've already seen the person you could become. Clearer, disciplined, calm. They wake up on time. They say the right things. They don't hesitate the way you do. And somehow, they feel more real than the version of you living your life right now. So, why does your mind keep returning to that version, but never quite becoming it? It doesn't happen loudly. It happens in small moments. When you're lying in bed, imagining how tomorrow will finally be different. When you replay conversations and rewrite yourself into someone more confident. When you picture a version of you who doesn't procrastinate, who doesn't overthink, who doesn't feel this constant friction inside. And for a moment, it feels good, almost comforting, because in that imagined version, everything makes sense. Your identity feels stable. Your decisions feel obvious. Your life feels aligned. But then the day begins, and you fall back into the same patterns, the same hesitations, the same internal noise. So a quiet tension builds. You start comparing yourself to someone who doesn't even exist, and the gap between who you are and who you imagine starts to feel like failure. This is where the mind turns on itself. You begin to think, why can I see it so clearly, but not become it? That question lingers, because it feels like a lack of discipline or motivation, but something deeper is happening, something your brain is doing on purpose. And it's not trying to sabotage you. It's trying to protect you in a way that quietly keeps you stuck. What if this imagined version of you is not a sign that you're falling behind? What if it's actually evidence that your brain is working exactly as it should? You're not broken for imagining a better self. You're adaptive. The human mind is built to simulate, to predict, to rehearse possible futures before they happen. That better version isn't random. It's a projection, a model your brain creates to reduce uncertainty about the future. In other words, you imagine a better version of yourself because your brain is trying to guide you forward. But here's the part no one tells you. The same system that helps you imagine growth can also trap you in it, because imagining change and becoming it are processed very differently in the brain. And that gap is where most people get stuck. Your brain has two important systems at play here. The first is often called the default mode network. This is the part of your brain that activates when you're not focused on the outside world. It's responsible for self-reflection imaging, the future constructing identity. When you picture a better version of yourself, this network is active. It's building a narrative. The second system is your executive control network. This is what helps you act, make decisions, follow through. Here's the problem. These two systems don't always cooperate. One creates the vision. The other has to execute it. And execution requires something your brain resists: uncertainty, effort, and possible failure. So your brain does something subtle. It rewards the simulation instead of the action. This is where dopamine comes in. When you imagine a better future, your brain releases a small amount of dopamine, the same chemical linked to motivation and reward. But here's the twist. You get the feeling of progress without actually moving. So your brain learns. Imagining is safe. Imagining feels good. Imagining costs nothing. And action risks discomfort, embarrassment, failure. So the brain starts favoring the simulation loop, mental model, the preview versus reality loop. Think of it like watching a movie trailer. The trailer feels exciting, complete, satisfying, but it's not the movie. Your brain gets hooked on the preview, the imagined version of you, and delays entering the actual story. And the more detailed the preview becomes, the harder it feels to step into reality, where things are slower, messy, and uncertain. So you stay in the loop, not because you're lazy, but because your brain is optimizing for emotional safety. We cannot eliminate the ideal self. That would mean giving up on growth, and your brain won't allow that. But we can rewire how we relate to it. We need a strategy that acknowledges your predictive brain and works with its rules rather than fighting against them. Here's a 3-step psychological framework. Step 1. Shift from identity to activity. The mistake we make is building an ideal person, a rigid identity. I want to be a runner. When you say this, you are attaching to a finished state, and every day you don't fully embody that complete state, the discrepancy is activated. Instead of defining yourself by who you should be, define yourself by what you can do. In psychology, this is moving from a dynamic sense of self to behavioral activation. Your brain processes actions differently than abstract labels. A label is absolute, you are or you aren't. An action is a small, manageable win. Your brain loves wins. Each successful small action releases a tiny hit of dopamine. For example, don't focus on the ideal self who is a fit person. Focus only on the ideal self who goes for a 10-minute walk. The discrepancy between not walking and walking for 10 minutes is small. The brain accepts this. You close the gap, you get the dopamine, you reduce the friction. Instead of saying, I want to be an organized person, just commit to putting one piece of mail in its correct file today. Action is a primary mechanism that reduces discrepancy in a sustainable way. Step 2, embrace process utility over outcome focus. We are obsessed with the destination, the perfect self, and we tend to ignore the journey. This is natural. The brain is motivated by tangible outcomes, but the idealized version of you is, by definition, an outcome. To fix this, you must find a way to make the process of change inherently satisfying. This is known as improving your process utility. Think of this like a video game. If the only part of the game that was fun was beating the final boss, you would never play through the long, difficult levels. You have to enjoy the levels themselves. How do you do this? You must find some value or enjoyment in the very behaviors you are trying to build before you see any long-term results. If you want to be a writer, your brain can't just be focused on having a finished book. It must find value in the act of sitting and typing. Perhaps you treat yourself to a coffee you love only while you are writing. Maybe you find writing partners and turn it into a social event. You are hacking your brain's reward system. You are teaching it that the activity itself is a reward, not just the eventual outcome. If you are only motivated by a future reward that is far away, the idealized outcome, you will run out of willpower before you get there. You have to drop the anchors of enjoyment into the present moment. Step 3, create a minimum viable day. This is perhaps the most critical step for your nervous system. You are accustomed to holding yourself to the standard of your ideal self's best day. On a best day, you have energy, you're focused, and nothing goes wrong. This is unrealistic. Life happens. Instead, you need a different standard. This is based on the concept of behavioral floors or minimum viable habits. Define the smallest, most essential action related to your goal that you can do on your absolute worst day, a day when you are tired, overwhelmed, and everything is going wrong. For that 10-minute walk, the minimum viable day action might be to just put on your walking shoes and stand on your porch for 30 seconds. For that writing project, it might be to write one single sentence. Why does this work? It prevents you from breaking the chain. Your brain builds habits through repetition. Every day you complete an action, you are strengthening a neural pathway. When you fail to act, you don't just stand still, you start to weaken that pathway. A minimum viable day is how you maintain momentum without taxing your willpower. It allows you to look at yourself and say, I did what I was supposed to do, even on a low-energy day. This completely shuts down the internal discrepancy and the anxiety that follows it. It maintains your identity as someone who shows up, even if what you do that day is very small. It prevents you from giving up entirely when the idealized vision feels too heavy to carry. These 3 steps work together to shift your entire psychological dynamic. By focusing on identity to activity, you are focusing on immediate process. By embracing process utility, you are lowering the immediate cost of action. By creating a minimum viable day, You are making success achievable every single day. You don't need to get rid of your ideal self. Think of it this way. Instead of the ideal self being a strict master that you are failing to please, imagine it as a benevolent guide, a destination on a distant shore. The distance between you and that shore creates a useful pull, like the current of a river. You are not meant to leap there instantly. You are meant to enjoy the act of rowing. You don't have to wait to become that person. You are simply practicing the things that person would do, one small action at a time. This whole process is about compassion. It's about stopping the inner war and understanding why the battle was being fought in the first place. You don't need more willpower. You need a different relationship with the part of your brain that envisions a better life. Stop waiting to become who you are meant to be. You are already the person who makes the efforts, who shows up, and who dreams. That, not the perfect reflection, is the person worthy of your respect. Perhaps the real ideal self is the one who accepts themselves right where they are, and that self is already within your reach in this very moment.